is Megan Skidmore, host of the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast. Welcome to episode 20, Self-Doubt with Jennie, Lakenan. As a certified life coach, I work with LGBTQ plus families of a conservative faith background. As an LGBTQ plus parent myself, who comes from a conservative faith background, the LDS Church, there have been a lot of questions and doubts come up on this journey. I started this podcast in an effort to normalize asking questions and having doubts. Thank you for joining me today. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast. I'm super excited today to have Jennie Lakenan with me as a guest. Jennie and I met, I don't remember because we met virtually first.
Yeah. Well, we met in person, I think, at Fearless, at the Fearless workshop.
Probably through various conferences and groups on Facebook and whatnot. I'm so pleased to have you here on the podcast today. Would you just take a minute and introduce yourself to everybody? Share a little bit about you.
Yes. So yeah, I'm Jennie. I'm a mom of 3 girls under 8. I'm a wife. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm a life coach, and I'm also a web designer. And that's actually what I do for my business. And that's kind of how you and I know each other too, is I help coaches with their websites, either with providing guidance to them of how to do it themselves, or I also build them. I build them from scratch for coaches. And that's actually what my business is. I don't actually have a coaching practice. I have a web design business, and then I end up using my coaching skills as I build sites for my clients. Yeah, that's so kind of me in a nutshell.
That's so good. You're really good at what you do. I'm going to say it. Just go take a look at Jody Moore's new website. That is all Jennie's doing. So,
well, the Jody Moore's membership is me, but her main site we still have yet to redesign. So
okay,
that's something we'll do at some point.
So we'll get to see more down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to invite you on the podcast for various reasons. First of all, I thought it'd be awesome to get to know you a little bit more. One of my goals in having this podcast is to normalize that we all have doubts about ourselves, about other people, about other things, and we have questions. We all want to ask questions, and that's part of having a human brain, going through this life, living the human experience. And for those that have listened to previous episodes, you know that I talk a lot about how having doubts is actually paramount to this concept of having faith. You cannot have one without the other. They're like two sides of the same coin. And so my podcast kind of has a spiritual spin on it, talks a lot about faith journeys. We also have doubts and questions that show up in other areas of our life. And so I thought that would be really interesting to talk with you about. Like you said, you are a web designer, and so you help individuals, primarily coaches, put their hearts out there for the internet to see and read about and know about. And I could only imagine some of the self-doubt, maybe questions that come up for folks. One thing I love to define, kind of how I define doubt for the purposes of my podcast. It can be a noun or a verb. And as a noun, it's to purposefully suspend judgment. As a verb, it's to be uncertain. So can you share with us a little bit about how you have experienced this, either for yourself as a coach, as a web designer, with clients that you've worked with?
Yeah. What's coming to mind? Well, first off, I see this all the time with my clients in that, when they're, especially those, like when they're kind of first starting their business, there's so much like self-doubt that comes up for them. And especially if they're, we have this, we coin this term like niche drama, when they're sort of figuring out, okay, what's my niche? Who am I going to coach? Do I want to coach weight loss, or do I want to coach corporate like transitions, or do I want to coach stay-at-home moms, or what have you? And they kind of, that's like a space that a lot of coaches find themselves in, and they see it as a problem. Like the word drama in niche drama sounds very negative, but I almost just like to think of it as just sort of like niche exploration. It doesn't have to be this negative thing. I almost think it's kind of a rite of passage in that first beginning stages of business to think, oh, I'm like having a lot of self-doubt, or I'm doubting, the direction that I'm going in my business. This is normal. This is where I should be. and I just need to keep moving forward, and if they could kind of see it that way, it would take a lot of the like negativity and judgment out of it. I love that you say that doubt is a suspension of judgment, like, and it's intentional and it doesn't have to be this negative thing. So yeah, that's kind of how I see it for my clients. For myself, I remember when I first started my business, I had kind of gone into online business thinking, oh, I'll be a life coach. Like I want to certify, I want to coach other people because coaching had impacted my life so much that I thought that that's what I was going to do. And then I started like meeting a lot of coaches and hearing about their experience and realizing like, oh, well, there's this need for a web design professional that can really come in and help these coaches to up level and have an online presence that represents who they are and the quality of coaching that they provide. And so I did like a few websites, and I was kind of in this space where I was in this messy middle of like, well, am I a coach that's just doing web design for now? Or am I a web designer and I'm just going to like set the coaching aside? And there was like this.
What? Jennie Lakenan had niche questions.
Totally. In the
That's
beginning, it was such
awesome.
it was about a period of about a month or so where where I was in this place of dissonance, and I just felt like such an imposter because I thought, well, I'm like lying to my web design clients because I really just like I'm eventually just gonna coach, or like that's kind of how I was thinking about it. And then one day I just remember sitting there and being like, you know what? No, I am just gonna go all in with being a web designer and being a website strategist. Like that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna have faith that I'm gonna figure out how to make that happen, and that I'm going to be able to like get clients, and that I'm going to be able to have the expertise to actually serve them well, and just went all in. And I did eventually certify still later as a life coach because I wanted to be able to use those skills to help my web design clients though. And that was why I did it. So yeah, that's like a moment where I decided I had doubt, and it was really important to propel me forward and help me to see what I actually really wanted and to choose faith and make a decision. So,
that's super relevant. I love what you said. I wanted to choose faith. I think sometimes when it comes to, you talked about, I'm going to go all in and have faith and make it happen. I think sometimes if we think that we can't go all in, that can kind of hold us back almost. It's almost this all or nothing kind of thinking, like, if I can't, then I'm done. I can't do this, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. And I love that you did do that, right? You did go all in, but you have evolved, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and for a while I didn't. For at least a period, I was kind of in this messy middle where I was thinking about being both things, both a coach and a designer.
And that's what I'm saying is you didn't have to know one or the other completely, right?
Exactly.
You still moved forward.
Mm-hmm.
You were all in and moving forward versus all in to one specific niche or title or area, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that's beautiful. It's beautiful to be in the messy middle. It
It's
doesn't
so
mean
painful sometimes.
yes.
But
And
it's such a growth opportunity.
it is. And I think there can be beauty to be found in some of the pain. Doesn't mean
Totally.
I'm always looking for it. You said earlier how drama sounds negative, and I loved how you rephrased it as niche exploration and that it's almost a rite of passage. I mean, how amazing would that be if we could view so much more of what we experience that are the bumps on the road in life as rites of passage, the things that we're not sure about, the things that don't make sense to us. We haven't walked that path yet.
Exactly. And not that that's how everyone finds it. For example, with finding a niche, some people know from the very beginning, and that's great. But for most of us, it's a process. And that can be really useful because then when you sort of get to a place where you decide what you want to do and you make a decision and you move forward with it, it can help you to have more certainty there because you've gone through this kind of process of exploring.
That's awesome. I love that. It's the process that brings more of the assuredness or the confidence or certainty.
Yeah, it can really help.
You also said a little bit ago that even you have had imposter syndrome. In a recent episode, number 15, titled Having Doubts is Not the Same Thing as Finding Faults, I share if you find fault with something or someone, you look for mistakes and complain about them. A cynic is a person who always finds fault in others, and synonyms could be to condemn or to criticize or to charge. So I see there is a big difference between having questions and doubts, doubting oneself or doubting or questioning others or things, and being critical and condemning about them, right? And when you said imposter syndrome, I think that they're somewhat connected. There's that self-criticism, that self-doubt, questioning of our abilities, which in many cases makes sense. Again, we're paving a road we've not been down before. How have you seen this show up with clients, or have you seen it show up, or even in yourself in your various roles?
Yeah, I'm thinking about a call that I had with a client just today, actually. And this particular client has been with me for a couple of years, and we built her site, and she newly certified a couple of years ago. And at that time, she's just the sweetest, the sweetest person. But she was just so full of doubts in herself and like, can I actually do this? But then today I was just reflecting on it as I was talking with her, like but she stuck with it. I think that's the point. Like she stuck with it, and she continued to move forward and, create content for her business and kind of explore her niche. And she's sort of like pivoted a little bit since then. And as she's coached people and figured out, oh no, this is what I actually really like to coach on. And these are the actual problems that people are facing, which are different than what I thought. And today, just talking with her, like she's doing this retreat in a couple of months, and is like, we were talking about how she's going to market it. And like, she was just really excited about, getting people there and, offering them her coaching package after the retreat. And just like, she just was exuding just so much more confidence. And it was just it's so beautiful to like see how far she had come from that place of kind of like self-doubt, but being willing to like move forward anyway and figure it out. And then now she gets to enjoy, because she was willing to go through that, she gets to enjoy a lot more of this like confidence and reassurance and
Yeah.
providing a value to people that are in her world that really need her. They need her help,
I don't think we can have one without the other. I think it's part of the process, that rite of passage, like you said. Would she be able to be in this place now of so much more confidence, so much more joy, clarity, and enjoying it in general more if she hadn't experienced what she did early on
Absolutely.
and go
Yeah.
through all the messiness?
Exactly. And continue and be willing to continue to move forward anyway. And
I think
instead of just avoiding that.
I think that's key. And I also think that's really applicable to a spiritual journey too, when we're having questions about things we don't understand or don't make sense to us. We don't have to just throw the towel in. It's important to just keep moving forward, keep progressing, because there's still so much value in that part of the journey.
And it's worth the effort.
It is. It is. And there's something there waiting for us on the other side of that messy river. What do we call it? The river of misery.
Yeah, the river of misery.
As coaches, we are taught about the rule of 50-50. Probably remember that during certification. And that's actually something that it really resonated with me from the get-go, possibly because of my religious upbringing. In the scriptures, we're taught how there is opposition in all things. So to view life through this lens of 50-50 just was an extension of that, made a lot of sense. And I think this can apply to our having questions and doubts in life by putting on the lenses of this view of life in 50-50. I think that kind of makes it more clear that it's supposed to be there.
Yeah, that life is sort of 50% positive and 50% positive emotion and circumstances, and however we choose to interpret our life, and 50% negative. And there's going to be stuff that is hard and emotions that we feel that are negative, and that's okay. Like the purpose of life isn't to feel happy all of the time, though. We know that, like we're taught in our religious upbringing, that we can feel joy at all times through God and Christ. And like I feel like I want to share this story too, because it's relevant.
Go for
it. But between my first and second kids, I had a couple of miscarriages, and I was just so devastated. And they were really early on, like, which doesn't necessarily minimize the emotion, but it's not like it was this huge traumatic event where I had to go to the hospital or anything like that. But I was just so emotionally distraught. And then I remember hearing one of our church leaders say in a talk at that same time that the joy we feel doesn't have to do with the circumstances of our lives. It has to do with the focus of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really freeing to me because it helped me to see like, oh, life is going to be 50-50 and sometimes I'm going to feel lousy. But even in those really hard moments, like, when I'm recovering from a miscarriage, there is still joy to be found there. And that's like a decision that I can kind of make and that God can help me to make and to help me to find joy, even in hard emotions. And so I don't know if that has exactly to do with the 50-50 that we're talking about
No,
here,
it
but
abs
I think the point is
yeah.
that like when you accept that life is 50% positive and 50% negative, and you're going to feel all of those emotions, the negative emotions aren't as hard because
Yeah. It normalizes it. It's
yeah,
this reminder that nothing's gone wrong.
yeah.
It's part of the package. They're supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And just sitting with them, it's not a problem. It doesn't have to be a problem. You
Mm-hmm.
bring up this experience as a mother. You were sharing with me a little bit about how this idea of doubts of self, questioning of self can come up, in other roles that we have, not just as a professional, not just as a coach. We have roles as a mother or parent or
Mm-hmm.
spouse or as a family member, even, as a
Yeah.
sibling.
And sometimes doubt can be helpful because it can be a protective mechanism, I think. Like one of my daughters kind of struggles a little bit with social anxiety
Okay.
and she, the me having doubts about her ability to get up on stage and perform like a musical piece in front of a big audience isn't me finding fault with her. It's me wanting to kind of like protect her and knowing that, well, that's something that would probably cause her anxiety. And maybe I want to check in with her and make sure something like that would be something
Mhm.
she was okay with. Like it's not necessarily me finding fault. It's actually coming from a place of like love and concern. And maybe people wouldn't define that as doubt, but I think that emotion still is relevant and comes up there.
Right. I think at the very least, it's teaching you something like what's going on here? Why is this coming up for me? And then you get to decide if it's helpful, if it's not helpful, if it's serving you, or if it's not. And that alone is valid for the whole experience of questioning and having doubts, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get to choose what works for you and what doesn't. Awareness is a big part of it. And yeah, maybe some of it is comes up as a protective, especially when it comes to your kids.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in this quest that I have to normalize questions and doubts in the spiritual realm, but also others, is I think I feel so strongly about it because that is what propels growth as humans. And therefore, it's a good thing, right? Otherwise, we'd be pretty static,
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuck in certain ways of being, of living, of experiencing life, of interacting with others, either on a professional level, on a familial level, in a community level, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What
Go
are your
ahead.
thoughts about, how it can actually propel and encourage and be a
Mhm.
catalyst for growth?
Yeah. Well, what comes to mind is when I'm thinking about my clients, we talked earlier about, well, the sort of newer coach that's figuring out their business and being willing to go through that experience in order to gain confidence and really grow. I mean, I even see that same concept apply in my clients that are more established that have been doing business for a while. And often
Interesting.
how it comes up is if they've grown to a point where they've kind of outgrown their current mentors, people that
Mhm,
they've been learning
mhm.
from, and they choose to kind of branch out on their own maybe. And then they start to realize like, oh, what I was taught isn't necessarily wrong or bad or anything, but it's maybe not what I want to do. It's not this sort of business model or this sort of voice in how they communicate with their customers works well for them, but that's not actually me. And how do I want to move forward? And how do I want to move forward and sort of shift that and shift my business model? And for some of them, it looks like they have a membership and they actually really like, which is this big, at scale
Yes.
coaching program.
Mhm.
And then they decide, oh, I actually really love one-to-one coaching so much more than a membership. And I have had clients that are sort of downscaling from they hired me to build them a membership website even, and they've run it for a little while. And now they're kind of at this place where like, well, I actually might want to shift to be doing more one-to-one coaching because I really just love that more. And I love the business model more and marketing it more. And it's just been really beautiful to watch
Mm.
them, because of course it's like this messy middle place where they're having doubts and they're like, does this mean that I did it wrong? And should I be beating myself up because I did it this other way for so long? But actually, no, I don't think I want to beat myself up. I think I just want to accept, it's like this whole thing. And it's just, I feel so privileged to like kind of be on the sidelines and to be able to just support them in whatever they end up choosing to do. And also just to watch their growth and like learn from it. I feel like I learned so much about myself and my own business when I watched, and myself
For
personally too, as I
sure.
watched them go through that.
For sure. I'm laughing because it's just nice to know that I'm not the only one who has experienced those emotions on this
Not
kind
at
of
all.
roller coaster ride. But, good for them for giving themselves that breadth to explore, try something out, and then allow
Exactly.
some questioning after they get exposed to something new, to allow
Exactly.
something else to be a possibility.
And to really settle into themselves internally and realize like, okay, no, here, what do I actually want here? Like what is true for me right now and in the place that I'm at in my life and where I want my business to be in order to be able to support me and my family and my clients. And I mean, being willing to kind of do that uncomfortable work can be hard. And I have even had clients that have decided to close their coaching practices because they were just like, this has served its purpose. I know I'm ready to be done for
Mm-hmm.
this, with this phase of my life. And like, I'm so
Wow.
happy for them that they know that, like, it's in such a place of integrity for them to, I mean, that's kind of a coachy phrase, I guess, but like, it feels so right for them,
Yes,
and it feels
they're being
good.
honest with themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
Exactly.
they're willing to own that this is my truth. This is not my path any longer. Or
And
this is
they're not necessarily doing it because their business failed or anything like that. Their business was going well. It was just like, this
yeah.
is something that I'm ready to this is a chapter I'm ready to close doors on.
So you are unique in that you get to hear these and witness these journeys kind of on a one-on-one basis with your clients. And I view this one-on-one space as often very sacred space because hearts are shared and opened and spilled. I want to talk a little bit about bringing up, our questions, concerns, doubts that we might have in more public spaces. Everybody's going to navigate that differently. And for sure, that navigation probably starts from within. Everybody's internal dialogue is going to be a little different. But if you're comfortable sharing, what are your thoughts about this? Being open about this human side of us in a more public forum. What's that like for you? What's coming up for you?
Yeah, I think as someone who tends to be like pretty private as far as my public platforms go,
Yes.
like I think it can be really challenging, especially from like a kind of more commercial standpoint. Like as a business owner, you kind of position yourself in a certain way. You want people to sort of see you in a certain way, your audience to see you that way.
Uh-huh.
And so being vulnerable in a way that puts doubts public can not always be kind of like appropriate, or like, I mean, appropriate sounds very judgy, but it can't always make sense. Like, for example, if Brooke Castillo, who's like the coach that created the certification program that you and I both went to, if she got on her podcast, and she's like really big in the weight loss space, she's an expert at weight loss coaching. If she were to get on her podcast and say, oh, I've been gaining some weight and I'm having a hard time with my weight loss and everything, like it would just wreck her positioning. It would not really make sense. Make
It would,
sense.
I think people would definitely stop and listen. Their ears would perk up.
Maybe, yeah. Well, but then, I mean, you could make the argument, I suppose, that some people might see that as like, oh my gosh, like she doesn't know what she's talking about. Then other people might actually see that as super powerful.
Yeah, could be endearing for
It
sure.
could be endearing. And of course, Brooke in her genius businesswoman minded way would spin it in a way, not spin it, that sounds negative, but she would figure out how to use it to her advantage and like help people to see her as even more of an authority. And she would, create new programs off of it, like, because that's just what she does. But that's the kind of thing where it can be in a commercial sort of setting, it can be kind of tough to be vulnerable like that. But I think that there are still opportunities to do that. Like I'm active on Instagram, and a couple of months ago, I published a reel. It was just like a little 1-minute video of me just saying, hey guys, like prayer really works. And here's where I've been at with my Instagram. I was really doubting my ability to get on here for a while and provide value to you all because of just my thoughts that I was having about Instagram. But then I was like praying for help, and and since then I've found like some new tools and resources and ways of thinking about Instagram that are really helping me to be excited about it. And like, I'm just so grateful. Like prayer works, who knew? Like it was kind of my Sunday thought of the day. And that video like got the most engagement and comments and,
That is wonderful.
people sharing their thoughts and their experiences of anything that I've ever shared on Instagram. And I think it was because I was willing to get vulnerable in a way that was still like okay with me. Like if someone had said a negative thing about prayer in that, or my ability to pray in that comment, like it wouldn't have really bothered me because I have, I'm fairly self-assured there, but like, yeah, I think it can be, there's a balance there for sure.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I strongly believe that vulnerability begets vulnerability. And that's one thing about having questions and doubts. The more that we can just be open about, yeah, I have them. Okay. I love that you were just yourself with your people on that Instagram post and look what happened. They responded.
Yeah, it surprised me, but then afterwards, and I thought about it and thought about vulnerability. Like you're right. People want to hear that you're a human and they want to connect with you. People want connection more than anything else. And so figuring out how you can be vulnerable like that. And sometimes that means sharing doubts and fears in order to connect with people and build relationships that can be powerful.
Well, I just have one last question for you, and that is, what does living beyond the shadow of doubt mean to you? When I say that, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I'm thinking of back to your first episode that you recorded, which I listened to this week. I think for me, maybe it means, maybe this sounds kind of counterintuitive, but maybe it means like being willing to live into my doubts instead of living adjacent, where I'm like kind of not really living because I'm not really willing to look at them or like accept them.
That's awesome.
But I'm actually like willing to kind of step into them and as we've talked about, like go beyond them and
that's really cool.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it before now. So I hope that makes sense.
That's okay. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wise words.
And just acceptance, like you said before, like because that awareness brings such power.
It does.
And
taking ownership. Empowerment. Yes. Yeah. Well, it has been a pleasure to have you on today. I just have a few for funsies questions for you. What is your favorite book?
Oh, I love anything by Brandon Sanderson.
Okay.
He's this fantasy fiction author. My middle daughter's name is actually Vivenna, which is a name from one of his books. So I'm just that much of a nerd.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert? I think I know, but tell us.
I think that COVID and a tough pregnancy during COVID made me more of an introvert than I used to be. I definitely like to have my like recharge time. Like when I go to events and stuff, I like to have my own room.
I hear that.
Could go recharge. But I definitely love being around people and I love creating relationships. So maybe I'm an introverted extrovert. I don't know.
Right down the middle. Are you a night owl or a morning lark?
I'm a morning lark. Yeah, especially with kids. It's kind of turned me into that, whether I like it or not.
Are you a Pepsi or a Coke fan?
Ooh, neither. I love. Can I break the rules?
No.
I love so Tazo, which is like a tea brand. They have this herbal tea. Oh, okay, you get it. Tazo lemon loaf herb tea is my favorite beverage of choice.
What about your favorite artist?
Like music artist or
anything? You fill in that blank.
I really enjoy listening to Imagine Dragons, which is a band. My husband and I actually met on a double blind date to an Imagine Dragons concert.
That's so fun.
It just brings memories.
Fun fact, my kiddo and I, we actually ran into Dan in the Salt Lake City airport last year.
No way.
A picture. It was way fun. Yeah, it's on my Instagram account. Furthest place you've traveled?
England. My mom and I went to London when I was in high school for a couple of weeks and we saw all the shows and it was
so fun.
It was fun.
So fun. And do you have a celebrity crush?
I don't. I have a crush on my husband.
No. Tell us about any offers that you have and where our listeners can connect with you and how to find you.
Yes. So you can find me at my website, JennieLakenan.com. My name's spelled funny. It's Jennie. And then my last name, Lakenan, is Lakenan. So N-A-N, like the first 3 letters of Nancy. JennieLakenan.com. You can go there, check out my work. If you're a coach, or honestly, like anyone that has an online business, an online entrepreneur, I work with anyone that is a good fit. And mostly that's online entrepreneurs, but I market to coaches, but I'll work with anyone who's a good fit. So yeah, if you need help with your web design, or if you're brand new and you're just getting started, I have resources for you too. So yeah, go check it out.
Awesome. Loved having you here today. Thank you so much, Jennie.
Thank you, Megan.
Come join me in Hopeful Spaces, a Dallas Hope Charities component of Hopeful Discussions, which is sponsored by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA. Hopeful Spaces is a monthly parent, caregiver, and ally support group facilitated by Megan Skidmore Coaching. To join is free. Simply send an email to chc@dallashopecharities.org. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. If what you have heard resonates, please share this podcast with others who you know would benefit. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts also helps spread the word and helps the podcast grow. Don't forget to connect with me at my website, meganskidmorecoaching.com, and subscribe to get my free 20-plus page LGBTQ+ resource guide for families, among several other free resources. I'm a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, which can be found at dialoguejournal.com/podcast network. The Dialogue Podcast Network is part of the Dialogue Journal, created in 1966 by Eugene England, a Mormon writer, teacher, and scholar. Eugene said, "My faith encourages my curiosity and awe. It thrusts me out into relationship with all creation and encourages me to enter into dialogue. My hope is that my podcast is an extension of that vision." Until next time, thank you so much for being here.